Ang Department of Labor and Employment po, welcome itong bill na ito. Dahil nagbubukas po ng opportunity para magkaroon ng malawakang discussion. Hindi lang dito sa freelancers, pero yung mga related emerging work arrangements driven by technology, kasama na po diyan yung tinatawag nating gig economy. Talagang kailangan po ito ng masusing pag-aaral at discussion dahil itong mga arrangements na ito ay bago lamang. Gusto ko lang pong susugan yung nabanggit ni Senator Villanueva na kinakailangan natin talaga ma-sharpen yung distinction kung ano ang gusto nating i-cover ng sa batas na ito. Kasi po yung freelancers na term ay hindi naman po bago yan. Ang tawag dyan under current laws ay independent contracting. Meron pong mga existing laws and regulations na nagko-cover ng independent contracting. Ganun pa man po, merong pagbabago dahil sa mga arrangements na ito, mukhang pumapasok na yung technology. So yung means of doing this, the services that are covered by these arrangements have changed, and they are technology driven. Mr. Chairman, we would like to put forward the views of the Department of Labor and Employment on this, especially in the area of clarifying what is the scope of this legislation, of this proposed legislation. It is very, very important, Mr. Chairman, because on the one hand, while the Department of Labor and Employment is primarily concerned with situations where an employer-employee relationship exists, in the case of independent contracting, the regulatory structure of the Department of Labor and Employment does not apply. The Department of Labor and Employment cannot be used, for instance, to enforce rights arising from independent contracts or from contracts covered by independent contracting arrangements. Meron lang kaming concern dito po, Mr. Chairman, dahil dito sa panukalang batas na ito, maraming assignment ang ibinibigay sa Department of Labor and Employment. At alam natin po lahat yan na kung maraming assignment, nangangailangan ng tao na nakadedicate dito sa assignment na ito para magampanan at ma-implement ng tama yung batas. So kung ano man, parang ang nakikita namin po dito ay ang ma-expand yung jurisdiction ng Department of Labor and Employment at papakialaman na rin siya yung pag-e-enforce, pag-adjudicate ng claims arising from independent contracting arrangements. Wala po yan sa current system at kung ito po ang mangyayari, ang Department of Labor and Employment po ay hindi handa. Hindi handa yung administrative structure ng Department of Labor and Employment po dito. Siguro po ang pwede lang may offer ng Department of Labor and Employment sa ngayon sa mga sitwasyon na hindi covered ng employer-employee relationship ay yung aming conciliation and mediation facilities. Nag-agree yung parties na mag-submit dito sa conciliation and mediation facilities. Pero kung wala pong settlement doon, hindi ito pwedeng iakyat sa adjudicatory powers ng Secretary of Labor at hindi rin po pwedeng ipasa sa National Labor Relations Commission. So ang nakikita po namin dito na kinakailangan tugunan dito sa mga freelancers na ito ay unang-una, kung nagkaroon ba ng dispute itong arrangements na ito, saan sila tatakbo? Pangalawa, ito bang mga arrangements na ito ay covered ng social protection legislation? Doon po sa una, maliwanag po na in the absence of a clear jurisdictional power vested in the Department of Labor and Employment, then the remedy will have to be the courts. On the other hand, doon sa pangalawa, yung social legislation, covered naman po ang independent contractors dyan sa social legislation natin. Kung gusto nilang magmiyembro as voluntary members of the SSS. Having said those, Mr. Chairman, may I also make some observations on the specific provisions of the bill. Number one, dun sa nabanggit ko na po yung kinakailangan po natin na liwanagin kung ano yung coverage ng batas na ito. Pangalawa, dito sa definition po or sa enumeration ng rights ng freelancers, Section 6. Kung titignan po natin, lahat ng rights na ito ay generally rights po ng manggagawa. Whether they are freelancers or workers under an employer-employee relationship. Wala pong distinction yan. Ang pinapagkaiba lang po, magkakaroon ng diferensya lamang kung una, merong employer-employee relationship. Kung on the other hand naman, independent contracting ang arrangement. Pangalawa, na point of distinction, saang sektor yung gagawa? Nasa private sector ba ito o nasa public sector? Pangatlo, yung location po ng performance ng trabaho. Nakikita po natin dito na hindi lang within Philippine jurisdiction ang kinocover nitong batas na ito. Pwede din yung kakontrata ng freelancer, kung gamitin natin yung term na yan, ay nasa labas ng bansa. And immediately we will have some issues regarding the enforcement of contractual arrangements beyond the territorial jurisdiction of the Philippines. May nababanggit po dito na para maprotektahan yung mga karapatan ng mga freelancers and other workers to be covered by this bill, the government or the state is going to pursue bilateral arrangements with other countries. It is not clear, Mr. Chairman, who is the agency that is going to do this. But however, I would just like to point out, Mr. Chairman, how the potential and practical difficulties that one might encounter in pursuing bilateral arrangements of this nature. For instance, to cite an extreme example, in the case of federal states like the United States, these states there, you have 50 states there, and they have different state laws. Their labor laws are different from each other, depending on the state. The state of California was mentioned by one of the resource speakers, but the labor laws in the state of California are different from the labor laws in the state of New York. So those are the practical difficulties that one might encounter, Mr. Chairman, in pursuing bilateral arrangements. But those are some of the thoughts that we can share with you at this point, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Usec. Senator Francis.
Mr. Chairman, I think the job here of Dole is to help the committee finalize the contentious points coming out of the proposed bills. And not to lecture on us that it is difficult. Sinabi nyo, mahirapan kayo. How would you convert your seemingly unpreparedness status right now to preparedness? That's why we're crafting a bill. And don't cite American laws, blah, blah, blah. I'm also a lawyer in New York. Hindi na pinag-uusapan yan. Ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, paano natin matutulungan yung manggagawa natin na walang employer-employee relationship na nakalagay sa saligang batas, trabaho ng Estado na bigyang proteksyon ng manggagawa. Hindi yung iiwas tayo na hindi namin kaya to, paano natin bilateral relation. Help us craft this bill. Help us fine-tune these pieces of legislation. Enable our workers benefit social legislation that can be provided by the state and Congress. So, wag natin sabihin, ay mahirap nga gawin to. Paano natin gagawin? Parang umayaw na tayo rito, sir. Ang trabaho natin, pagandahin ito, ayusin to para sa mga manggagawa, hindi yung para umiwas tayo na hindi natin kayang ipatupad dito. Nasa ibang bansa, meron na tayong Department of Migrant Workers, meron tayong mga polo, Department of Foreign Affairs ang pumapasok sa bilateral relations. Bakit natin, parang sinabi nyo sa amin, wag na natin ituloy ito at napakahirap nito. Wag po ganun, sir. Wag po ganun, sir. Napakasakit pakinggan yung ganun. Kami, kahit nakabakasyon, nagtatrabaho rin kami dito. Si chairman, pinagpupuyatan din ito. Pero pag sabihin natin na hindi natin kayang ipatupad ito at gawin, umuwi na tayo. Parang mali ho yun. Hindi ho yun ang sinumpaan tungkulin nating lahat dito. Salamat po.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman,
May I,
if I may,
sir?
Mr. Chairman.
Before that, Senator Joel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I commiserate and share the sentiments of our dear colleague, Senator Francis Tolentino. This is the problem, Mr. Chairman. Pagka simula pa lang, ayaw na natin or nagko-complaint na tayo na trabaho na naman, hindi mo maganda yung dating. Kasi when you start thinking about the laws of different states of the United States, we don't care about it. We care about our people. We are here to protect our workers. We are all in agreement that at this point in time, there is nothing in the provision of the labor code, nothing with regard to, when you talk about our laws, zero protection for our freelancers, for the informal economy. And that's what we are talking about. And just for the record, Mr. Chairman, when we passed the occupational safety and health standards, Dole came to us and said, we don't have inspectors. This representation introduced an amendment, 200 plus million pesos for our inspectors. And we provided inspectors for Dole. And perhaps let's be extra careful in making statements na parang mahirap itong trabaho. Wala namang madaling trabaho, especially to help our people. For example, Mr. Chairman, itong Section 6, itong rights of freelancers. Babalikan ko lang, Mr. Chairman, just to pound my point here, Mr. Chairman. This was written and part of the bill because I am not supposed to ask questions anymore, Mr. Chairman, but let me ask this question to the Department of Labor and Employment. What have you been doing? The complaints being filed by our freelancers on the conditions of their employment. What are you doing? How do you handle these complaints? Considering that freelance work is primarily governed by the civil service, by civil code. Do you have a system of assistance to guide them, to guide our freelancers on the proper recourse and to educate them of their rights? Yung mga narinig natin kanina, hindi nila alam saan sila pupunta, anong gagawin nila. So this is the answer to the problems that we are facing. But right now, sige, pag-usapan natin. Gusto niyo pag-usapan natin? Anong ginagawa niyo? Isa-isahin natin lahat ng sektor. If that's what you want, Mr. Chairman, I'm willing to stay here until the wee hours of the morning and we'll ask questions. How are you taking care of our freelancers? Yung isang photographer na kumuha ng pictures dun sa isang kasal, biglang hindi siya binayaran. Anong gagagawa niyo? Sa amin pumupunta para humingi ng tulong. Anong batas meron tayo? Wala. So this is the reason why we're spending time, quality time, to help them, protect them. So punta tayo sa ibang dako, yung mga riders, biglang umorder, hindi binayaran. Ang gagawin natin? Mismo sa PSA natin, hindi naka-record kung sino freelance. Isa na sa atin dito, wala makapagsabi. Ilan talaga yung freelancers dito eh. Ilan din sa informal economy. Wala makapagsabi eh. Hindi sabihin natin, hindi, mahirap tong trabaho na to. Baka hindi natin kaya to. Mahirap po yun. Parang baliwala na lang tayo. Abolis na lang natin lahat sarili natin. Pagka ganun, Mr. Chair.
In fact, you never submitted any position paper before this committee with regard to this bill that we are discussing right now. Usec, is there any? Did they submit any position paper? Dole? Wala. So I don't think,
May I, Mr. Chairman?
are you interested?
Mr. Chairman, with my apologies to the good senators,
Chairman, yung iba nag-submit na ng position papers. Yung kumukontra, wala palang position paper.
Chairman, if I may, with the permission of the members of the, again, we express our apologies for the for whatever undue statements that we may have made. We manifest, Mr. Chairman, that we are going to submit formally our position paper. But as I prefaced my statement earlier, we welcome the filing of this bill because it opens a whole new avenue of discussion. The intention of the Department of Labor and Employment in pointing out the matters that we have earlier stated was really to put forward the discussion points that we feel ought to be further explored in relation to the drafting a bill that is going to be responsive to the needs of not only of freelancers but, as I've said earlier, to the needs of the workers in the emerging economy who are involved in emerging work arrangements, particularly the technologically driven work processes, Mr. Chairman, honorable
Chairman,
senators.
I think the problem aroused from the non-submission of Dole of its position paper and the expression of personal opinions coming from the representative of Dole. You separate your personal biases and opinions vis-a-vis the official position of your mother department, which may be contrary to your personal opinion. It is not the opinion of the entire Dole family. I'm very sure of that. We have hardworking other personnel of the Department of Labor willing to accept additional duties for the sake of our workers and not abstain or refrain from having additional functions. So paghiwalayin mo yung personal opinion mo at yung opinion ng Dole.
Maybe we can ask him if that was his personal opinion or not.
No, Mr. Chairman, we came here after due discussions within the Department of Labor.
So
Then let me ask this question, Mr.
That
Chair.
was your personal opinion?
No, Mr. Chairman, we have a committee in the Department of Labor and Employment. We call it the Technical Committee on Legislative
No, the
Matters.
statements that you just made earlier, was that your personal opinion or is that the opinion of the department?
And that is the department's position, Mr. Chairman.
Position paper.
We manifest that if we may be given a chance to submit the formal position paper.
So as far as I understand, you are not in favor of this bill. Am I correct?
No, Mr. Chairman. As I've stated earlier, this is a very good opportunity for us to clarify certain issues about the workers or those workers who are involved in the emerging world of work. We know that there are many problems encountered, including how they enforce their rights arising from contracts, including their access to labor dispute resolution mechanisms, and also including their access to social
Sinabi mo
protection
kanina,
mechanisms.
ang departamento nyo, hindi kayo handa kung ano-ano sinasabi ninyo. So, katulad nga na sinabi ni Senator Francis, na nandito tayo para tulungan kami, magtulungan tayo para protektahan itong ating mga freelance workers. May tulungan niyo naman kami, hindi
Yes, sir. Certainly, we are at
contradicting yung aming mga ginagawa dito.
your disposal, Mr. Chairman.
Pakialam namin sa mga labor laws sa California, mga labor laws sa New York. Ano pakialam namin doon? Nandito tayo sa Pilipinas. Ang sundan natin, ang mga batas ng labor laws dito sa Pilipinas, wala tayong pakialam sa mga batas ng ibang bansa.
Mr. Chairman, I mentioned that because one of the resources speakers mentioned a California law, and that was also in relation to the matter of entering into bilateral arrangements with other countries.
But it's
I was
beside
disappointed.
your jurisdiction as Dole. We have Department of Migrant Workers. We even have Migrant Workers Office in every embassy. So why would you talk about something that is outside your jurisdiction? Even DMW is no longer part of Dole. May I know, Mr. Chairman, may I ask you, Usec, committee is this committee that we are in?
This is the Committee on Labor and
Committee
Employment.
on Labor, and we're tackling these very important measures. The Department of Labor and Employment has no position paper? How is that, Mr. Chairman? Anong committee to kung ganun?
I myself am surprised because the committee secretary just informed me that there was no position paper submitted by this department.
What are they doing? They're not preparing? They come here to the Senate unprepared, Mr. Chairman?
Mr.
And
Chairman,
That's not acceptable.
This has been passed during the last Congress through the efforts of our majority floor leader. Did you submit a position paper during the last Congress?
Definitely, Mr. Chairman, yes.
yes.
Do you want to put that in record here in this committee?
Submit
Or do you want
another,
to
we will submit another position
a
paper.
different
Mr.
position
Chairman.
paper?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, in order to put on record and formalize the points that we have raised earlier. Just to if I may be allowed, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, I raised those points, or the Department of Labor and Employment raised those points in order with the view of inviting and providing inputs to the committee on what might be the points that need to be clarified in crafting a legislation that is responsive to the matter that we are trying to address, Mr. Chairman.
We will give you 1 week to submit the position paper of the department.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we will do that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I just wanted to put on record, Mr. Chairman, that if you look at the Department of Labor statement, the Department of Labor and Employment admitted that there is no current labor protection accorded to freelancers and self-employed professionals, and that the provisions of the labor code do not generally apply to them. And that's why these measures that we are deliberating upon is very important, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman. So, just want to put that on record, Mr. Chairman.